So today's video is kind of piggybacking off of yesterday's video, just a little bit deeper and kind of like more thoughts on the same topic, sort of. This one is kind of going, if you're putting yourself in the position of the person that's being receptive to the possible feedback that you're getting from somebody that loves you, and also being that person to give the feedback. Because something I was thinking about in relation to that is, so for instance, if you're the person to give the feedback to somebody, to say that there's somebody that you love, that you care about, that may have done something that hurts you, that bothers you. Maybe it's not even to you, maybe it's that you're noticing that they're having behaviors that might not be even helpful for them or to other people. Sometimes when we have, we're in that situation, we have to kind of remind ourselves that even when we're telling somebody something about themselves and you want to be blunt, you want to be honest, you want to be truthful about it, we also have to be tactful and sometimes be gentle with them. I know some people, they can take the tough love, but not everybody can take the tough love. I guess pretty much what I'm saying is that what's hard to do, or at least for me it's hard to do, maybe some of you guys it's easy, but what's hard to do is trying to make sure that the message that we're trying to get across to that person, that they're actually going to be receptive to it. So there's kind of two parts to that. It's kind of making sure that the way that we're articulating the issue with them is in a respectful manner, in a way that they're gonna actually be able to receive it. Meaning that we're not having an attitude, or man, I don't like when you do this, or you're such a jerk, or saying it to them in a way that's not an attitude, or giving them giving them an attitude, and kind of giving it to them in a more calmful is not even a word, in a calm, respectful, tactful manner. And then number two, making sure they're even going to be receptive to it. Because if they're already kind of in an emotional state, or they're upset or frustrated or stressed out, sometimes when somebody's in that state of mind, they're not going to necessarily want to hear anything you have to say, especially if it's going to be, constructive criticism towards them. Because I know myself, and now I'm going to flip it to the other side. Now, if I know of myself, sometimes if I'm in a stressful state, an emotional state, high, overwhelmed state, whatever, I might not be receptive to somebody telling me about myself, if it's constructive criticism or not. Also, same token, is if they're also coming across in a more negative way. If somebody's telling me something and they're telling me like, oh, you're such a jerk, or you're an a-hole, or it bothers me when you do that, and they're saying it in a way that's kind of like in an attitude, that's not the best way to communicate something to somebody. And I know it's hard, like if we're already upset, we're frustrated, we want to be honest with the person, we want to tell it to them, we just want to say it how we say it, but we have to remind ourselves, are we saying it just to say it, or are we saying it for them to possibly absorb it, and make the changes necessary? Because I feel a lot of times, especially when we're upset and frustrated, we're not thinking in the best interest of the person that's going to receive the message, and we're just saying it how we want to say it, not even caring how they're receptive to it, or thinking, well, they should receive it anyways, doesn't matter how I say it. Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. So it's one of those things that I just think about all the time, is how we're coming across other people, how are we articulating ourselves to the people that we love, so they can actually listen and understand what we're saying, versus just saying it however we want to say it, without even caring about how they're being receptive to it. And then being and like I said, on the flip side, being the recipient of the feedback, trying our best to absorb the constructive criticism that we may be receiving from other people, and then knowing that sometimes the people that are giving us the constructive criticism may not always tell us in the best way. And so our first response might be to be defensive about it, especially if it's coming off in a negative way. But then like I said, I try to take time afterwards, after the situation has died down and I'm away from that person, to sit back and then try to analyze what they said and what I may have done or said or looked like that could have made them feel the way that they felt about me or whatever, and try to take that constructive criticism as best as I can, which is not always easy to do. Obviously, none of this is easy to do. I don't know if I'm really articulating myself that well right now, because I'm kind of like mixing and matching what I'm trying to say, but I feel like hopefully the bigger messages coming across. It's just pretty much the communication that we have with the people that we love when it comes to either receiving the feedback or giving the feedback to the person, you know. And bigger, like, so pretty much it's just how do we respond to it and how do we share it. And it's always having to do with the other person, because communication isn't just being able to talk to somebody, having the right words and phrase and stuff like that. I feel like it's also being mindful of the person that you're trying to communicate with, if they're even going to be receptive to what you're saying. Because if you think, oh, I'm such a great communicator, but you're talking to that person in a way that has an attitude, then that might not be the best type of communication, right? I think communication is all inclusive in terms of not just the words and phrases that you're using, but also being, like I said, being mindful of the person that you're talking to, making sure it's the right audience and how you're saying what you're trying to say. And then once again, on the flip side, trying to be receptive to any kind of feedback you're getting from somebody that loves you, even if they're not saying it in the best way possible, which is probably the hardest thing to do, especially for myself. When somebody's giving me constructive criticism, it might not sound like constructive criticism. It just might sound like they're judging you, being mean, being rude, and they might say it in a mean and rude way. And so your mind automatically shuts it off, like, oh, they're just being rude, they're just being a jerk. But then maybe after some time to reflect on it, you're like, okay, wait a minute, they were rude, they were disrespectful, they probably should have said it to me in that way, in that tone, but maybe something that they said was truthful, so maybe I should kind of think more deeply about what they said and then make the proper adjustments if I find necessary. Sometimes what I do also, if I'm getting feedback from somebody, they're like, man, you come off as arrogant, you think you're better than everybody else, you're a jerk, blah, blah, blah. I'll ask other people, like, is there anything that I do that comes off as aggressive or arrogant or whatever I'm being told about myself? I try to ask other people to make sure that it's not just a one situational thing, and that maybe, you know, I could have this effect on a lot of other people, and then, you know, they'll be like, you know what, that's true. Sometimes when you say stuff like this, it does come off that certain way and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, for real? And I'm glad, thank you for letting me know, and then I could work on it. So that's pretty much my thoughts for today. I think it was kind of it was all over the place, so I apologize for my thoughts not being completely organized, but that's just how my brain is working today. In other news, for those of you guys that celebrate Halloween, happy Halloween. If you're passing out candy, cool. If you're going trick-or-treating, cool. If you're going out and about, just everyone be safe today. Halloween sometimes has a lot of crazy stuff going on, so just try to be safe and have a good day. If you don't celebrate Halloween, then regardless, still stay safe and have a good rest of the day. And so until the next time, I will see you guys in the next video.